In our dialogue of civilization, we saw the significance of truth and attending to multiple narratives, as everyone has their own stories. The importance of narratives is especially true during the Troubles, a time that remained dark and contentious in Irish history, where many individuals' truths are buried and unacknowledged. Women, in particular, are excluded from the conversation, forgetting that they also play active roles during the conflict. Because they were generally associated with positions of caregiving, nurses, wives, and mothers, they were often sidelined and overlooked during the movements. The public likes to only paint them as victims whose sons or husbands had left them to join the IRA, or as girls manipulated by men to become politically involved in the conflict. In reality, their hearts and souls were as invested in the cause as their male counterparts. In our project, we wanted to show the meaningful contribution that various women had to the Troubles and illustrate how it impacted their lives. But more importantly, we felt that learning and sharing their truths was essential. Uprising. Mairead Farrell, born in 1957 and died in 1988.
Do not stand at my grave and weep.
Armagh Jail. During the Troubles, Armagh Jail was the only female prison in Northern Ireland, so the population of political prisoners grew exponentially. The prison was known for overcrowding and inhumane conditions, as many women can recount traumas of abuse, violence, and dehumanizing treatments from the guards. However, behind the prison walls, past the brutality, there also existed a camaraderie and a friendship between the women. The Republican women worked together to organize protests, displaying their strength, spirit, and resiliency. The drawing portrays an image of Farrell and her friends taken in the prison yard. From left to right, Eileen Morgan, Sinead Moore, Mairead Farrell, and Sal Dara. Among these women was Mairead Farrell, the first prisoner sent to Armagh after the abolishment of political status in 1976, marking an attempt by the British government to shift the narrative of the Troubles in Northern Ireland to further delegitimize and criminalize the IRA and others related to the Republican movement. Farrell joined the Irish Republican Army at age 14, and on April 5, 1976, she was captured by the police during a mission to bomb the Conway Hotel in Dunmurry. During her trial, she refused to recognize the court because it was an institution of the British and was sentenced to 14 years. Being only 14 years old, what made Farrell join the IRA and take up arms? According to herself, in a documentary called An Unfinished Conversation, she stated, "My own family has a Republican background, but living on the Falls Road, I saw internment, I saw the British soldier. That in itself, you become aware. I have to do something. It just isn't right." Falls Road is a majority Catholic/nationalist area in Belfast with a history of tension and violence due to its proximity to Loyalist Shankill Road and the surveillance from the British Army. Farrell cited two incidents that most impacted her when living on Falls Road. The first, the burning of Bombay Street, August 1969. In an attack by the Loyalist mob, explosive devices were thrown into homes on Bombay Street, a predominantly Catholic area. Loyalists burned houses to the ground, hundreds of Catholics had to flee, and people died, all while the police did nothing to intervene. The second being the Falls Road curfew on July 1970. In an effort to find weapons from the IRA, the British Army and the Royal Ulster Constabulary began raiding houses in the lower falls. Stoning from locals was met with gunshot and CS gas. Many people were injured, and hundreds were arrested. The Falls Road curfew marked the turning point in how the community viewed the involvement of the British Army. At Armagh, Farrell was the officer commanding of the female IRA members. She refused to wear the uniform and began a no-work protest. On February 7, 1980, after a violent attack by one of the guards, the no-wash or dirty protest began, where the women would smear menstrual blood and feces on their cells. She, along with Mary Dole and Mairead Nugent, went on hunger strike to coincide with the men prisoners in 1980. They started on December 1st and lasted for 19 days. Farrell began taking more political approaches to the conflict, being the only female prisoner to stand as a candidate in the 1981 general election. After being released from prison, she enrolled at Queen's University to study political science and economics, strengthening her stance on socialism and social equality. Farrell campaigned for issues she was passionate about, such as strip searching for female prisoners and gender equality. She stated, "I am oppressed as a woman, and I am also oppressed as an Irish person. Everyone in this country is oppressed, and yet we can only end our oppression as women if we end the oppression of our nation as a whole." Mairead Farrell died on March 6, 1988, at age 31. After dropping out of university, she continued IRA activities. She was sent with other members to Gibraltar to plant a car bomb. However, the British Army intercepted and shot Farrell, who was unarmed at the time, multiple times. In 1995, the European Court of Human Rights took the case and found that Farrell, Sean Savage, and Daniel McCann had been unlawfully killed. Mairead Farrell was a woman who never stopped fighting for what she believed in, whether behind a gun or a pen, behind the walls of a prison cell or a classroom. She encapsulated the strategy of Armalite on one hand and ballot box on the other that many endorsed during the Troubles.
Activism. Bernadette Devlin, 1947 to present. Bernadette Devlin Mikulicki was born in 1947 in a majority Catholic nationalist town called Cookstown. Her father, John Devlin, taught her Irish history and instilled Republican ideals into her mind. However, it was after he died, leaving Bernadette's mother, Elizabeth, to raise 6 children, including 9-year-old Bernadette, on welfare, that Bernadette truly understood and believed in the injustice of British rule over Northern Ireland. In 1965, Bernadette began studying psychology at Queen's University. Elizabeth Devlin raised her children to value education, knowing it was their only way out of poverty. Thus, when Elizabeth Devlin passed away, leaving Bernadette to care for her younger siblings at the age of 19, the thought of leaving school to attend to her siblings and household duties did not even cross Bernadette's mind. In addition, Bernadette joined the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association in a march from Coal Island to Dungannon, participated in the 1969 Civil Rights March from Belfast to Derry, and founded the People's Democracy, a socialist student group concerned with the civil rights cause. That same year, Bernadette became the youngest woman to be elected to Parliament at the age of 21. During her term at Westminster, she was convicted and imprisoned for her leadership role in the Battle of the Bogside, a Catholic nationalist community uprising in Derry's impoverished Bogside, which created an effective no-go area for the Royal Ulster Constabulary, the Protestant Unionist Loyalist police force in the north of Ireland. She then published her autobiography, The Price of My Soul, and continued leading civil rights marches, including the one on January 30th, 1972, which led to the Bloody Sunday massacre in which 14 unarmed protesters were gunned down in cold blood by the British Parachute Regiment. The day after Bloody Sunday, during an emergency debate surrounding the event, Home Secretary Reginald Maulding made a statement that the paratroopers fired in self-defense. In response, Bernadette crossed the House of Commons floor and smacked the Home Secretary, a famous act Bernadette is well remembered for. Bernadette's activism comes to a slowdown after she and her husband are shot and badly wounded in their home by Ulster freedom fighters in 1981. The attack, like many on Catholic civilians, is highly suspected of involving collusion between loyalist paramilitaries and the British state. Later, Bernadette co-founded the South Tyrone Empower Program, STEP, which aids migrants, single parents, and people with physical disabilities. She works there to this day, engaging in grassroots community empowerment and rights advocacy.
Derry, January 30, 1972.
Bernadette, the road is blocked, so we will turn and go to Free Derry Corner. We need you on a lorry at the front to gather the crowd.
Bang!
Gunshot from the walls? There are only soldiers there. Soldiers would never fire into a crowd. Don't run! Stay low! They are only shooting over our heads.
Bang! Bang!
Run to save the day!
Westminster, emergency debate, January 31st, 1972.
The army returned the fire directed at them with aimed shots and inflicted a number of casualties on those who were attacking them with firearms and with bombs. That is our duty. And when people fire on troops, when people attack soldiers with bullets and bombs, they must expect retaliation.
Is it in order for the minister to get up in this house unchallenged and tell lies?
The Honourable Lady for Mid-Ulster must not call a member of Parliament a liar and must withdraw her statement.
I will withdraw the word but not the sentiment. But I assert my right as the only eyewitness to speak.
The Honourable Lady for Mid-Ulster has no rights other than those given to her by the Speaker.
The Honourable Lady for Mid-Ulster, the mace is too heavy, has whatever rights in this house it is within her power to exert.
Miss Devlin, what exactly provoked your action this afternoon? Do you really think this was the proper way to make your protest? Some would call it an unladylike or undemocratic way in the chamber of the House.
Unladylike? There is a young girl whose body was carried out of the bogside this morning. She was shot in the back by paratroopers. She was not asked if she was a lady. And undemocratic? I was the only person that was there, and I was not even allowed to ask a simple question. 13 people were shot in the back by a murdering group of thugs with the tacit support of the Home Secretary and no doubt the orders of the minister.
Agency. Inez McCormick, 1943 to 2013. Inez McCormack was born September 28, 1943, to a Loyalist Protestant family in County Down, Northern Ireland. McCormack did not have a traditional Loyalist upbringing and described herself as a confused young Protestant growing up in Belfast during the 1950s. And while attending college in Derry and university in Dublin in the 1960s, she witnessed an astonishing amount of corruption and abuse of power that led her to join the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Movement, a movement that, though it aimed to improve the lives of all working class and poor people across the Protestant-Catholic divide, was painted by Unionist leadership as a Catholic nationalist Republican uprising. McCormack later became involved with the trade union movement to campaign for the poorest and most neglected workers. At the time, many of these were female part-time workers whom she helped to unionize for better workers' rights. Throughout her labor rights work during the Troubles, she not only became the first woman National Union of Public Employees official, but she also became the first woman to chair and the first woman president of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. This paved the way for other women to gain access to similar positions. Due to her extensive peace work, she was influential in the Good Friday Agreement as a proponent of inclusive human rights and equality provision. Overall, Inez was very transformative in her work as she sought to improve the conditions of those who were most neglected. Her work through activism and organization aided in making those communities thrive. The comic you're about to see highlights the kind of person Inez was. It is based on a true story about her, in which the Royal Victoria Hospital was in a deadlock with the labor union over 9-week-old infected and hazardous laundry. It culminates in McCormack's dumping of the laundry in both the offices of the hospital's CEO and deputy CEO. The story is illustrative of how kind and supportive McCormack was to those in need, as well as her willingness to take matters into her own hands, literally. Sadly, Inez McCormack passed due to cancer in 2013. However, she leaves behind a legacy of organizations she founded to support women and overlooked communities. One such organization is Participation and Practice of Rights, which builds working class social justice coalitions, whether for housing rights, the right to work, or mental health access, across all identities in the north of Ireland. Inez will forever be known as a trailblazer that helped people see their true value and gain agency over their lives. Foul laundry.
I'm nervous, Inez.
You've done it the first time. You can do it again.
What did you call this meeting for?
The dirty laundry situation at this hospital has become a clear hazard.
I don't see an issue here. It doesn't smell at all. It's under control.
What do you mean? We received a litany of complaints from patients and employees. I can't believe this. They won't do anything about it. How are patients and employees supposed to work in such inhumane conditions?
Don't worry. I have a plan. We'll just have to do it ourselves. Thank you, everyone, for volunteering to help clean up the hospital.
Oof. Oh, that stuff is positively nasty. Where are you taking that?
Someplace where it'll be appreciated.
Huh? The labor union cleaned it up themselves? Splendid! Send out a press release commending them for their efforts. I'll have to thank them in person tomorrow. Yeah, my office. Mairead Farrell, Bernadette Devlin, and Inez McCormack were all fighters. They believed in and fought for equality, human rights, and a more just Northern Ireland. Similar to other women of their time, their narratives were complex. Comparing the three stories shows women's diverse experiences with the Troubles and how it might have shaped them in different ways, giving them various approaches to the conflict. They were many and various archetypal figures: fighters, heroes, rebels, union leaders, politicians, and dreamers. More importantly, these three feminist icons and many other unsung women played a pivotal role in the transformation of Northern Ireland through their uprising, activism, and agency. It is vital to remember that women's stories and issues deserve recognition because they are integral to both the conflict and the transformation of conflict. Today, the island of Ireland is in a watershed moment of rebirth. If a new Ireland is to be equitable and just, the central role of women in the history that led to this rebirth cannot be relegated to the margins.